Hey friends, Mr. Cram. I'm a little tired. I have a brother who lives up in Michigan right now, and they also are kind of stuck in their houses right now. And last night he called me and he wanted to play some Xbox, and I stayed up too late. Anyways, hope you guys are doing okay. Hope you're not bored to tears. But all right, I'm going to continue our story here. I'm going to combine a couple of chapters because these chapters are really short. Roald Dahl, he kind of puts his chapters into like these bite-sized pieces, which I really like. Sometimes the bites are very small, and so I'm going to combine two bites because I'm hungry for reading. Okay. Now, if you remember, he's going around the house, right? He's collecting all of these things. If it's powdery or runny or a liquid, he's just dumping it in. Anything except for actual medicine, right? He had promised his parents not to open the medicine cabinet, and he's sticking to that promise. That's integrity, okay? But now we're getting to this chapter called Animal Pills, and the illustration here, like he's just staring up at all of those bottles and whatnot. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start. Make sure you're comfortable. Again, maybe doodling. It's my favorite thing to do when I listen to something. All right. At this point, George suddenly had an extra good wheeze. It's like an extra good thought. Although the medicine cupboard in the house was forbidden, what about the medicines his father kept on the shelf in the shed next to the hen house? The animal medicines. Yeah, his dad's a farmer, right? So they would have medicine to help the animals feel well if they were sick. What about those? Well, nobody had ever told him he mustn't touch them. Let's face it, George said to himself, hairspray and shaving cream and shoe polish are all very well, and they will no doubt cause some splendid explosions inside the old geezer. But what about the magic mixture? What the magic mixture now needs is a touch of the real stuff. Real pills and real tonics to give it punch and muscle. George picked up the heavy 3/4 full pot and carried it out the back door. He crossed the farmyard and headed straight for the shed alongside the henhouse. He knew his father wouldn't be there. He was out haymaking in one of the meadows. George entered the dusty old shed and put the stewing pot on the bench. Then he looked up at the medicine shelf. There were 5 big bottles there. 2 were full of pills, 2 were full of runny stuff, and 1 was full of powder. I'll use them all, George said. Grandma needs them. Boy, does she need them. The first bottle he took down contained an orange-colored powder. The label said, for chickens with foul pest, hen gripe, sore beaks, gammy legs, cockerlitis, egg trouble, broodiness, or loss of feathers. Mix 1 spoonful only with each bucket of feed. Well, George said aloud to himself as he tipped in the whole bottleful, the old bird won't be losing any feathers after she's had a dose of this. The next bottle he took down had about 500 gigantic purple pills in it. For horses with horse throats, it said on the label. The horse-throated horse should suck 1 pill twice a day. How would you know a horse had a sore throat? I was wondering. I couldn't tell you. It's in my head there. Grandma might not have a hoarse throat, George said, but she certainly's got a sharp tongue. Maybe they'll cure that instead. Into the pot went the 500 gigantic purple pills. Then there was a bottle of thick yellowish liquid. It said, for cows and bullocks, the label said, will cure cowpox, cow mange, crumpled horns, bad breath in bulls, earache, toothache, headache, hoof ache, tail ache, and sore udders. The grumpy old cow in the living room has every one of those rotten illnesses, George said. She'll need it all. With a slop and a gurgle, the yellow liquid splashed into the now nearly full stew pot. The next bottle contained a brilliant red liquid, sheep dip, it said on the label, for sheep with sheep rot and for getting rid of ticks and fleas. Mix 1 spoonful in 1 gallon of water and slosh it over the sheep. Caution: do not make the mixture any stronger, or the wool will fall out and the animal will be naked. By gum, said George, how I'd love to walk in and slosh it all over old Grandma and watch the ticks and fleas go jumping off her. But I can't, I mustn't, so she'll have to drink it instead. He poured the bright red medicine into the pot. Now, the last big bottle on the shelf was full of pale green pills. Pig pills, the label announced, for pigs with pork prickles, tender trotters, bristle blight, and swine sickness. Give 1 pill per day. In severe cases, 2 pills may be given. But more than that will make the pig rock and roll. Just the stuff, said George. For that miserable old pig back there in the house, she'll need a very big dose. He tipped all the green pills, hundreds and hundreds of them, into the stewing pot. There was an old stick lying on the bench that had been used for stirring paint. George picked it up and started to stir his marvelous concoction. The mixture was as thick as cream, and as he stirred and stirred, many wonderful colors rose up from the depths and blended together. Pinks, blues, greens, yellows, and browns. George went on stirring until it was all well mixed. But even so, there were still hundreds of pills lying on the bottom that hadn't melted. And there was his mother's splendid powder puff floating on the surface. I'll have to boil it all, George said. 1 good quick boil on the stove is all it needs. And with that, he staggered back toward the house with the enormous, heavy stewing pot. Here he is walking out of the barn there. Imagine that is pretty hard to carry. On the way, he passed the garage, so he went in to see if he could find any other interesting things. He added the following: 1/2 pint of engine oil to keep Grandma's engine going smoothly, some antifreeze to keep her radiator from freezing up in the winter, a handful of grease to grease her creaking joints, and then back to the kitchen. Now again, I'm going to read this little chapter here because it is very short. It's called The Cook-Up, all right? Now, you notice George, he's gone ahead to start boiling this right there. It's creating quite a cloud of, I assume it's steam, smoke, whatever's coming out of this pot. I have no idea what would come out of a mixture like that. I imagine it would smell interesting. All right, now the cook-up. All right, in the kitchen, George put the heavy stewing pot on the stove and turned up the gas flame underneath it as high as it could go. "George!" came the awful voice from the next room. "It's time for my medicine." "Not yet, Grandma," George called back. "There is still 20 minutes before 11 o'clock. "What mischief are you up to in there now?" Granny screeched. "I hear noises." George thought it would be best not to answer this one. He found a long wooden spoon in the kitchen drawer and began stirring hard. The stuff in the pot got hotter and hotter. Soon the marvelous mixture began to froth and foam. A rich blue smoke, the color of peacocks, rose from the surface of the liquid, and a fiery, fearsome smell filled the kitchen. It made George choke and splutter. It was a smell unlike any he had smelled before. It was a brutal and bewitching smell, spicy and staggering, fierce and frenzied, full of wizardry and magic. When he got a whiff of it up his nose, firecrackers went off in his skull, and electric prickles ran along the backs of his legs. It was wonderful to stand there stirring this amazing mixture, and to watch it smoking blue and bubbling and frothing and foaming, as though it were alive. At one point, he could have sworn he saw bright sparks flashing in the swirling foam. And suddenly, George found himself dancing around the steaming pot, chanting strange words that came into his head out of nowhere. Fiery broth and witch's brew, foamy froth and riches blue, fume and spume and spoondrift spray, fizzle, swizzle, shout, hooray! Watch it sloshing, swashing, sploshing, hear it hissing, squishing, spissing, Grandma better start to pray! You see him dancing around there? He's kind of like in a little trance. You see the sparks and the smoke right there? Whatever he's created seems to have some magical properties, it would seem, right? It reminds me of a witch dancing around a pot of like a potion she's making, right? But it's young George about to give something to somebody he feels is a witch, right? Now, the next chapter is just called Brown Paint. Pretty soon he's going to be giving this medicine to Grandma, and my question as a reader is, number one, will she suspect anything, right? Will she take the medicine? I would like to think she does, because I really want to find out what's going to happen when she eats this stuff. I think it would be a boring book if she did not eat it, right? But who knows, right? I mean, if you think about it, in like Jack and the Beanstalk, like, I think the beans were thrown out the window, and then that amazing vine grew. What if this stuff spills somewhere and something grows there? I don't know. I have all kinds of thoughts. Predictions. I hear my dog walking by the door there. It's about time she got up. All right. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing okay. I will look forward to reading you guys this next section tomorrow. It's going to be a two-chapter day tomorrow because these are bite-sized little chapters. Cool. Okay. Anyways, yeah. See you guys tomorrow.